The financial aid forms never stood a chance. My father didn't even let me finish my sentence. He crumpled them up without a second thought, tossing them into the trash like it was nothing more than junk mail. He didn't look angry. He wasn't even upset. He looked bored. Leaning back in his chair, the leather creaking as if to emphasize the silence, he calmly spoke the words that would define my entire future. "You are dead, capital Fiona." His voice was flat, detached, like reading a report. An asset with no yield. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at him as he reached for his checkbook, signed a check for $5,000 and slid it across the desk from my twin sister Bianca's apartment, her proper environment to thrive, as if my existence wasn't even worth a second glance. "You, on the other hand, figure it out yourself." His words hung in the air, cutting deeper than any insult. I didn't slam the door. Slams are for people who want attention. I closed it quietly, my heart heavier than it had ever been. The room that had always felt like a storage unit for an unwanted child where my father saw no value was now a prison in my mind. I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to beg. I was going to make sure he understood just what dead capital could do. But first, I needed to walk away. It was time for something different. Time for a plan. I never asked for much, but it never seemed to matter. Growing up in the shadow of my father's expectations, I learned quickly that nothing was ever enough. Bianca, with her carefully curated smile and perfect Instagram posts, always seemed to have it all. To him, she was the golden child, the one destined for success, for connections, for an audience. I was the afterthought, the one who didn't fit his plans, the one who wasn't marketable enough to be polished and displayed. Bianca got the Porsche, the champagne toasts, the constant praise. She was the future, the asset he could showcase to the world. He'd bought that car for her, a brand new pearl white Porsche, a symbol of his pride. He looked at it like it was his masterpiece while I stood there in my thrift store coat and my worn-out boots, asking why. I was never meant to be an asset. I was just a liability in his eyes, a depreciating figure who had no use unless I could produce something for him. The estate account, the trust funds, the money he claimed didn't exist. He drained it all to fund Bianca's image, and he couldn't even look me in the eye when I asked, "Where did the money come from, Dad?" It was a simple question, one he should have been able to answer. But instead, he laughed, that short, mocking sound that echoed in my ears. He didn't even care to lie convincingly. "It came from the estate account, your grandmother's trust." The air left my lungs. That money, that safety net was supposed to be for our education, for our future, for both of us. It was never meant to be liquidated for a luxury car for Bianca's vanity project. He didn't see it that way, though. To him, she was an investment. He said it to my face with a twisted smile. "Bianca is an investment," he told me. He made it clear that she would go far because she was a face, a brand, a marketing tool. She's going to be meeting people, making connections. She's the face of this family. And I was just in the way. I was the background, the support, the warehouse of forgotten things. He told me I was a liability, that I was the one gathering dust in the back of the warehouse, while Bianca was a shiny product displayed on the shelf, attracting wealth and status. He looked at me, really looked at me like I was a forgotten line item on a spreadsheet, and I felt it. Every word, every look. I was the invisible one, the one who didn't matter. That was the moment right there in the driveway that I understood the value he placed on us, on me. I had always been the smart one, the quiet one, the one who did what she was told and never asked for more than what she was given. But I could feel the weight of his words sinking deep into my chest. "You're back in support," he said, like it was a cruel joke. He saw us as commodities, her the beautiful asset. Me, the useless, depreciating liability. And in that moment, as Bianca revved the engine and sped off to a future her father had paved for her, I stood there in the rain, watching her go. She didn't even look at me. She didn't even care. She was already playing the part he had cast her for. I, on the other hand, was left to walk the 2 miles to the bus stop in the pouring rain. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't defeated. I just realized something. He didn't if I was the warehouse, if I was the back-end support, then I knew where the bodies were buried. And I was going to use that knowledge to my advantage. He thought I was the one who had no value. He thought I was a line on a ledger. What he didn't realize was that a liability can become a debt. And debts eventually come due. I didn't leave that day empty-handed. No, I left with something far more valuable than the worthless check my father had written for Bianca. He thought I was just a college graduate with no future deadweight, but I wasn't. I wasn't the same person I was when I walked into his office that morning. I was something different now. I had spent 4 years in the background, ignored, underestimated, just another quiet figure in the family. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't just learning how to survive in their world. I was learning how to take it apart. When I got to my room, the smallest one in the house, the one that had never felt like mine, I didn't even bother looking at my clothes. The closet, the photos, the bed, they weren't the things that mattered anymore. I didn't need any of it. I went straight for the vent under my desk. I had installed it years ago, a little secret I had created for myself. Carefully, I loosened the vent cover and pulled out the small, waterproof, fireproof box I had hidden there. It wasn't a diary inside. It wasn't a trinket from childhood. It was something much more powerful. Inside that box were 2 high-capacity external hard drives and an encrypted laptop. While Bianca had been perfecting her influencer persona, I had been perfecting my own secret project. The laptop wasn't just for schoolwork. It wasn't just for notes. It was a tool I had created for a purpose, one that had taken years to prepare for. I sat down on the floor, the rough carpet scratching at my legs as I connected the laptop to the house's network for one last time. My father's home office server was supposed to be impenetrable. He had spent thousands making sure no one could access it, his precious financial fortress. He thought he was untouchable, that the barriers he had built were strong enough to protect him. But he had never counted on me. He had never counted on the fact that while he was too busy parading Bianca around, I was in the background learning how to see through his empire, how to read the numbers that made it all run, his firewall. It was a joke, a cost he had never realized was unnecessary. The password he used for everything, his country club login, his email, his secure server, it was the same. A simple word, one that made it too easy for me. One keystroke and I was in. The screen went from red to green and I was staring at everything he had hidden behind layers of lies and financial smoke. He had made it all seem legitimate, but I could see the cracks, the transactions, the hidden offshore accounts, the consulting fees that didn't match up. This wasn't just about tuition anymore. This wasn't about trying to get a few $1,000s so I could get by. No, I was looking for leverage. I was going to tear down everything he had built, brick by brick. I wasn't a beggar anymore. I wasn't asking for scraps. I was about to take what was rightfully mine and then some. The progress bar on the screen crawled forward. 10%, 20%, 30%. It felt like the only heartbeat in the house as everything else faded away. Downstairs, I could hear them celebrating. The clinking of champagne glasses. Bianca probably texting about her new apartment, her new life, her new status. I let them laugh, let them toast to their success. They didn't know that every clink of those glasses was one step closer to their downfall. I wasn't angry. I wasn't impatient. I was focused. They had underestimated me for too long, and now I was going to use that to my advantage. My father thought he was cutting off a useless child, a daughter who couldn't contribute to his empire. But he forgot one crucial thing I knew where the bodies were buried. And I was about to start digging. The download finished with a soft blink on the screen. I disconnected the drive, slipping it into my backpack like it was nothing. The file on that drive wasn't just a collection of numbers. It was his entire financial history, the lies he had woven over the years, the dirty money he thought no one would find. It was all there waiting for me to use it. I stood up, leaving the rest of my room untouched. The bed was unmade, the closet untouched. I didn't need any of it. I didn't need their approval. I had what I needed. And now it was time to walk away. I walked down the stairs, my backpack heavy with the weight of everything he thought he had hidden. Outside, the night air was cool, but it didn't touch me. I wasn't cold. I was numb. Numb in the best way possible. I wasn't angry at them. I wasn't even sad. I just felt power. Real power. I had what he had overlooked. And he was about to learn that dead capital doesn't just sit there. It haunts. And it takes. It takes everything. I wasn't just leaving his house. I wasn't just walking out the door. I was walking into the future. And he was going to wish he had never underestimated me. It was a Tuesday morning, just another routine day. I was heading to my shift at the library, walking down the long paved driveway that led to our house. It wasn't the best car, but it was mine. The 10-year-old sedan I had been driving since high school, rusty in some spots, but it got me where I needed to go. My father had made it clear that I wasn't allowed to park anywhere near his BMW. My car didn't fit the image, I guess. As I rounded the corner, I stopped in my tracks. There it was, a brand new pearl white Porsche Macan. The sun caught the sleek curves of the car, making it look like a showroom model. A red ribbon stretched across the hood, a symbol of luxury, of wealth, of a life I had never been allowed to access. Bianca was already inside it, adjusting the rearview mirror like she was preparing for a photo shoot. She was checking her angles, making sure everything was perfect for her next Instagram post. I could see her through the tinted windows, practicing her smile, her hair perfectly styled. She didn't look like a student heading to class. No, she looked like an influencer getting ready for a sponsorship deal. I stood there for a moment watching her, trying to process what I was seeing. My father, of course, was there standing proudly by the driver's side, his hand resting on the hood of the car. He was looking at it with a kind of adoration, the way someone would look at a piece of art they had just bought. The pride in his eyes was unmistakable, and I couldn't help but feel a sick twist in my stomach. It wasn't just the car. It was everything it represented. To him, Bianca was everything. She was the future. She was the one with value. She was the one who could turn heads, who could make connections, who could network her way into the kind of circles he would never let me in. And me, I was just an afterthought. I had always known it deep down, but seeing it in such a raw, blatant way, there was no denying it now. He looked at her, like she was the centerpiece of his life, his golden child. And I was the background noise, the invisible one, the one who didn't fit his plans. It was hard to breathe as I stood there taking it all in. The reality of my place in this family, the stark truth of how he saw us. Bianca, the shiny product polished and on display, and me, the warehouse, the one who wasn't worth anything unless I could be sold for some kind of return. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I simply asked quietly, "Where did the money come from, Dad?" I needed to know. I had to know. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the idea that all of this, his wealth, his priorities, his view of us had been built on something I didn't understand. He turned to me then, that smile still plastered on his face. But there was something different in his eyes, a condescending gleam that made me want to turn away. He shrugged casually. "It came from the estate account, your grandmother's trust," he said, as if it were nothing, as if it were no big deal. But that's when everything shifted. I felt the air leave my lungs. That trust was supposed to be for us, for our future, for our education. It was supposed to be a safety net, something to fall back on. But here he was, using it to buy a luxury car for Bianca, a toy, a status symbol. He had drained it all, just like he had drained everything else. All for her. "But that was for college," I said, my voice barely a whisper, trembling with disbelief. "That was supposed to be for us." He laughed, a short, dismissive sound. It wasn't even a real laugh. It was like he was mocking me. "You need to learn the difference between an expense and an investment," he told me, his voice cold, calculating. "Bianca is an investment. You're a liability." The words hit me harder than anything he had ever said before. I wasn't the future. I wasn't the one he believed in. I wasn't the one he had faith in. Bianca was. Bianca was the one who mattered. And I was just dead capital, something to be written off, discarded, minimized. I stood there in the rain, feeling the weight of it all. Bianca revved the engine, her laughter filling the air as she peeled out of the driveway, leaving me standing there, soaking wet. She didn't even glance back. She didn't even care. She was already gone. And me, I was left with nothing but the bitter taste of his words, the sting of his rejection. But in that moment, something else clicked. I understood what I had to do. If I was dead capital, then it was time to show him just how dangerous that could be. I wasn't the warehouse. I wasn't the liability. I was the one who held the keys to everything he had built. And I was going to take it all. The dinner was set, like it always was, lavish, immaculate, and stiff with attention. I arrived precisely at 6:59 p.m., as instructed, stepping into the dining room, which felt more like a stage than a home. The centerpiece of white lilies, the silver cutlery, the crystal glasses, all of it screamed perfection, but it was a facade. My mother, Susan, was seated at the table, her fingers fidgeting with her napkin, as if trying to maintain some semblance of control. Bianca, of course, was already there, her phone propped up against a water glass, broadcasting every moment to her online audience. "Look who decided to join the real world," she quipped, the sarcasm dripping from her voice as she angled her camera to catch my entrance. "The exile returns." Her voice was like a needle, but I didn't react. I wasn't going to give her that power. My father sat at the head of the table, his usual smug smile on display. As I sat down, he pushed a plate of meager chicken and vegetables toward me. The portion was noticeably smaller than anyone else's, but it didn't matter. He had already made it clear that I wasn't worth the effort. "We're doing this for you, Fiona," he said, with that condescending tone, like he was bestowing a great favor upon me. "Someday you'll thank us for the tough love. Cutting you off is the only way to build your character." My mother nodded, sipping her wine. "We're teaching you resilience. Bianca needs support because she's building a public image. You, on the other hand, need to learn how to survive in the shadows." I took a deep breath, but didn't let it show. I picked up my fork and stared at the plate. "Thank you for the lesson," I said, my voice flat, as devoid of emotion as they expected. Bianca giggled from behind her phone. "She's so ungrateful, guys," she laughed. "Can you believe it?" The mockery in her voice stung, but I didn't let it break me. Not this time. I kept my gaze steady, my face unreadable. They thought they had won. They thought they had me trapped, cornered in this little family drama. But what they didn't know is that while they were all playing their parts, I was playing mine, quietly, calmly, waiting for the perfect moment. The moment came when my father, with his usual air of superiority, slid a manila envelope across the table. "Since you're officially independent," he began, "we need to clean up some loose ends." Inside the envelope was a document for my grandmother's custodial account, which he claimed only had a few $100s. I scanned the pages quickly and my stomach twisted. It wasn't a few hundred, it was over $400,000. Money he had hidden from the IRS, money he had funneled there for years, disguised as gifts to his child. But this time, he had made a mistake. He had listed the original source of the funds, Consulting Revenue Omega Partners. There it was, in black and white. It wasn't just a release of funds, it was a confession, a smoking gun. I walked into the lobby of Vance and Associates, the glass walls and sleek, modern design, giving the place an air of power. It felt like stepping into another world, one that had always been out of my reach. The polished floors gleamed beneath my feet as I approached the receptionist, her cold stare measuring me up before she spoke. "Professor Vance is in meetings all day. You can leave your card." I didn't have a card, and I didn't plan on leaving. I placed the manila folder on the marble desk, its contents far more valuable than anything I could hand over on a business card. "Tell him this file contains the reason his audit of Omega Partners is about to fail." She looked at the folder, then back at me. She hesitated before picking up the phone. 3 minutes later, I was sitting in a corner office with Professor Vance, the man who was about to become my biggest ally. He flipped through the pages of my father's financial files without a word, his eyebrows raising as he paused on one transaction. "This is a discrepancy in the vendor payout schedule," he said, barely looking up. "A rounding error." I didn't flinch. "It's not a rounding error," I replied, my voice steady. "It's a pattern. Look at the timestamps. Every transaction ends in 03. That's not a vendor code. That's a routing number for a shell account." His eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something recognition. He closed the folder with a sharp motion. "Who are you?" he asked, assessing me with a new respect. "I'm the person who knows where the rest of the zeros are," I said, "and I'm looking for a job." The deal was struck then. The war had begun. The night had come. My 21st birthday, the moment when everything changed. I sat in front of my computer, the screen glowing in the darkness of my small apartment. My heart pounded as I logged into the secure banking portal using the credentials I had scraped from my father's server months ago. I had all the information I needed, the account that had been his secret slush fund, his offshore hiding place. Now it was mine. I typed in the account number, holding my breath as the screen flashed red. Account closed. Panic surged, but I didn't let it control me. I dug into the raw logs, searching until I found it a pending transfer. The money hadn't moved yet. It was sitting there, waiting. The transfer was scheduled for tomorrow, but at midnight, the account would legally belong to me. I clicked the buttons, filed the reclamation claim, and redirected $450,000 into a private trust, effectively locking it away from him forever. I sat back, my mind racing as the realization hit me. I had done it. I had won. The rest of the night blurred into a daze as I walked across the graduation stage. Hours later, my diploma in hand. But it wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of everything I had reclaimed. My father, standing in the crowd, met my eyes for a fleeting moment, and I saw it the dawning recognition that I was no longer just his daughter. I was his undoing. Outside, he grabbed my arm, demanding the scholarship money he claimed I owed him, his voice trembling with anger. I showed him the emptied account, the evidence of his own corruption. "It's mine now," I said, my voice calm, almost detached. "And if you challenge me, you'll have to explain this to the IRS." His empire was crumbling, and I was the one who had brought it down. Looking back, it's hard to believe how far I've come. From being dismissed, overlooked, and reduced to nothing more than an asset on my father's balance sheet, to standing here holding the keys to everything he thought he controlled. It wasn't just about money. It was about power. The power to reclaim what was mine, to take back control over my life and my future. I've learned that you don't have to play by someone else's rules. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or vengeful. It's quiet, calculated, and it comes when they least expect it. Fiona was dead capital, they thought, but what they didn't realize is that dead capital doesn't disappear. It haunts, it turns the tables, and in the end, it makes its own way. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been told you're not enough or that you don't matter, then you know what it's like to fight for your place in this world. Take back your power. Make them see you for who you really are. If Fiona's story resonates with you, if you've ever had to stand up and take what's rightfully yours, hit that like button and subscribe, because it's your turn now. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. The world is yours to shape.